Silence is not empty, it is not passive, and it is definitely not weak. The moment you stop reacting, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. People feel uneasy, unsettled, and alert, not because you attacked them, not because you spoke back, but because you didn't respond at all. Human beings are conditioned to expect feedback, a nod, a reply, a reaction, some signal that confirms they still have influence. When that signal disappears, the mind starts searching for meaning. It looks for danger, judgment, rejection, or loss of control. In that moment, silence becomes louder than words. It removes predictability, it removes reassurance, and most importantly, it removes emotional leverage. This is why silence feels uncomfortable to so many people. In this video, we're going to explore the dark psychology behind silence, why calm people are often misunderstood, and why the quietest person in the room often holds more power than anyone realizes. Why the brain hates silence. The human brain is built to predict outcomes. At every moment, it asks a simple question: what happens next? Conversations, arguments, and relationships all depend on this prediction system. You speak, I respond. You react, I adjust. This feedback loop keeps people psychologically comfortable. Silence breaks that loop completely. When you don't respond, the brain loses its reference point. It cannot predict your intention, your emotion, or your next move. That uncertainty creates discomfort. Studies in psychology show that uncertainty is often more stressful than negative information. The mind prefers bad news over no news at all. This is why people push for reactions. They provoke, over-explain, repeat themselves, or raise their voice. They are not trying to communicate. They are trying to restore certainty. Your silence forces them to sit with the unknown, and not everyone can handle that pressure. Silence as invisible pressure. Silence creates pressure without aggression. When you stay quiet, you remove resistance and allow the other person to speak into the space you leave behind. Whatever fills that space comes directly from them. In interrogation psychology, silence is used intentionally, not to intimidate, but to encourage disclosure. When there is no interruption, people begin to talk more than they intended. The same principle applies in everyday interactions. When you don't react, people explain themselves excessively, justify actions no one questioned, and reveal insecurity without realizing it. You didn't demand honesty. You didn't accuse. You simply removed noise. And in that quiet environment, truth surfaces naturally. This is why silence feels heavy. It carries psychological weight without confrontation. It allows observation instead of reaction, and observation is far more powerful than emotional response. Why manipulators hate silence. Manipulators rely on emotional engagement. They feed on reactions such as anger, guilt, fear, or validation. Silence starves them. When you argue, they gain leverage. When you defend yourself, they gather information. When you react emotionally, they learn how to push your buttons. Silence removes all of this. They don't know what you're thinking. They can't tell if their tactics are working. They lose the ability to adjust their strategy. This lack of feedback creates anxiety. That's why manipulators often escalate when ignored. They provoke harder, accuse you of being cold, or claim you're acting superior. These accusations are not observations. They are projections. Silence isn't cruelty. It's resistance. Denies manipulators the emotional access they depend on to maintain control. Silence forces projection. When people don't get answers from you, they start answering for you. Your silence becomes a blank surface, and others project their own fears onto it. An insecure person assumes rejection. A guilty person assumes judgment. A controlling person assumes defiance. Notice something important here. You didn't change. Their interpretation did. Silence doesn't expose your thoughts. It exposes theirs. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths in psychology. People often accuse others of what they themselves would do in the same position. Silence doesn't create paranoia. It reveals it. The discomfort people feel around your silence usually has very little to do with you, and everything to do with what they are afraid you might see. Social power of quiet people. In social situations, the loudest person often appears confident, but appearance is not power. True power usually belongs to the person who speaks last, or not at all. Silence signals self-control, and self-control signals strength. People subconsciously associate calm behavior with authority. This is why leaders pause before answering. This is why confident individuals speak slowly and selectively. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. People listen more carefully. Your presence feels grounded and intentional. Silence creates status without demanding attention. This is also why people lean in when the quiet person finally speaks. The absence of constant noise makes every word feel deliberate, measured, and important. Silence in conflict. Conflict thrives on reaction. Anger feeds anger. Defensiveness fuels attack. Silence disrupts this cycle completely. When you stop reacting emotionally, the conflict loses momentum. The other person may become louder, more personal, or more aggressive. That escalation is not confidence. It is loss of control. Silence during conflict is not surrender. It is refusal to participate in emotional chaos. You are not avoiding the issue. You are refusing to give it energy. Without emotional fuel, even intense arguments collapse under their own weight. Silence allows you to observe rather than engage, and observation gives you clarity. Clarity is far more valuable than winning an argument. Why silence is misunderstood. Silence is often misinterpreted as arrogance, coldness, weakness, or disinterest. But these labels reveal more about the observer than the silent individual. People who fear silence often fear being alone with their thoughts. They confuse noise with connection and reaction with relevance. Silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you are choosing when and whether to speak. That choice is power. Power has always made people uncomfortable, especially those who rely on constant interaction to feel secure. Silence challenges the idea that attention equals importance, and that challenge makes many people uneasy. When silence should be used, silence is not about avoidance. It is about intention. It should be used deliberately, not passively. Silence is effective when emotions are high, when manipulation is present, when words would escalate tension, or when observation is more valuable than response. You are not silent because you are confused or intimidated. You are silent because you are aware. Awareness is dangerous to people who depend on chaos and emotional reactions. Silence allows you to gather information, maintain control, and decide your next move with clarity. Used correctly, silence becomes a psychological advantage rather than a weakness. Silence doesn't make you invisible. It makes people uncomfortable because it removes their sense of control. In a world addicted to constant noise, instant replies, and emotional expression, silence feels unsettling. Not because it is empty, but because it is full of meaning. The calmest person in the room is often the one observing everything, and those who feel threatened by your silence are usually afraid of what it might reveal. When you stop reacting, people begin revealing themselves. Silence doesn't shout, it watches, and that is exactly why it is so powerful.